Good morning. Morning. It is awesome, beautiful, beautiful day. My goodness, I almost skipped church and go to the park or something. You might have wished you just skipped church. But happy Mom's Day to all you moms. I've got a wonderful mom. If you've ever met my mom, you would think she is on crack. She's, let's see, I'm going to do the math here. She's 72 and just retired 2 weeks ago. She was an ER nurse 3 days a week, and then she works at Disney 3 days a week. And my dad also works at Disney 3 days a week, so they still kept that job. So they get paid to talk. And like me, my parents are very shy, withdrawn, don't like people. So they're like, in seventh heaven, they go, we get paid to talk to people, and they love that. So if you ever go to Epcot down in Florida, there's that big silver, it looks like a massive golf ball. And 3 days a week or more, they're in there, and you'll see who they are right away because it has their name on there. So, but happy Mom's Day to my mom. I have I married a wonderful mom. My wife Yvonne, she's not here because she's carnal and lukewarm in her faith. It's a big day for her. Some of you know she's on Cupcake Wars tonight. It's kind of a big deal. But the cupcake shop has been very, very busy the last few weeks, and she's baking. We were there baking cupcakes. Yes, I make cupcakes too. Okay, I don't. I just move stuff. And but we were there till 10:30 this last night, and she's there this morning, and it's all good, except for my diet. Now, I'm excited. I'm excited because we've spent the last few weeks looking at what would be maybe qualified as a defining moment in the life of Jesus. And there's this thing that occurred in Jesus' life, and it comes right from his heart. It's not something that he strategically planned in order to have a great story. It was something that he just did naturally, like most of us do, breathing. It's something that the early church understood and embraced. And as a result of that, Paul and the early church put this into practice. It became a regular habit. Why? Because it was something that Jesus did, and therefore they wanted to emulate Jesus and reflect him, so they did it as well. And it enabled the early church to create change, to influence others, and to impact their culture. And I want to look at the story again just for a moment. And this is where it starts in Luke chapter 19. It says, Then Jesus entered and walked through Jericho. There was a man there. His name was Zacchaeus. And we know him. He was a head tax man, and he was quite rich. He was rich because basically he stole to collect taxes from his own people for Rome. But then he would actually add amounts to what he was collecting from those people in order to pad his own pockets. He was a tax man. Today we would call that person a politician. Now, just kidding. Somebody's like, oh, I'm a politician. So, I'm sorry, we'll pray for you. Now, it says that Zacchaeus, just kidding, desperately wanted to see Jesus, but the crowd was in his way because he was a wee little man. And he couldn't see over the crowd, so he ran and climbed up the tree. And this is where Jesus comes in. When Jesus got to the tree, he looked up and said, Zacchaeus, hurry down. Today is my day to be a guest in your home. Zacchaeus scrambled out of the tree, hardly believing his good luck, delighted to take Jesus home with him. Now everyone who saw the incident was indignant and grumped. What business does he, Jesus, have getting cozy with this crook? And Zacchaeus stood there a little stunned. It was one of those slams that was said loud enough that Zacchaeus got it, heard it. He knew he wasn't liked. In fact, he knew he was hated. It's one thing to know you're hated. It's another thing for somebody to say it out loud. It's also another thing for them to say it out loud and everyone around him to agree. I think all of us would agree that one of the things that's very, very important to us, whether or not we're willing to admit, is we all want to be liked. We all want to be accepted. It starts in grade school, gets loud in junior high, becomes prominent in senior high, and we spend the rest of our lives trying to get people to like us, to accept us. Why? Because we want to fit in. And we were created with this thing within our nature, our DNA. We were created to connect with others, and so we want to belong. We want to fit in. We want to have a group, a clan, a crowd, a family, somebody to hang with and share life with. And so Zacchaeus was already on the outside looking in, and this just was profound. It was a slam that basically said in this large crowd, you don't matter, you don't belong, and you don't fit. Now, two things I want to say about this is this. Number one, it happened. It's not a parable. It's not a part of a strategy that Jesus had taught his disciples, and now they're trying to implement. It was not a strategic teaching moment where we've done. If you've ever been a teacher, if you've ever been a leader, if you've ever been in ministry and had a group that you were leading, there are those times we set up what we call teachable moments where the kids learn something that they never forget. I had a friend, his name's Matt. This is free, it's not in the notes. And Mac was a youth pastor, and he was a youth pastor in this church. And so he's always trying to get what he called life moments, teachable moments his kids would never forget. So they were going on this retreat, and the retreat was called Loving the Unlovable. Okay? And he taught about it for like 2 or 3 months. Well, this is how he taught it. He set a friend of his up, who was also a pastor, and said, dude, the next 3 or 4 months I need you to grow a beard, I need you to look pretty rough, and I need you to find a bike, a motorbike. You have a motorbike? He goes, no, but I can borrow one. He said, this is a scoop. We're going to be making this trip in this bus, this charter bus, and I need you to be broke down at such and such place, and we will pick you up. Okay? And here's the scoop. I need you to be loud. I need you to be irreverent. I need you to have a foul mouth. I need you to hit on the girls. I need you to tell dirty jokes. But we're going to pick you up, and you need to make those kids feel completely, these nice church kids, as uncomfortable as you can. And they did. They picked up this guy, and he got in there, and he'd pass gas, and belch, and tell dirty stories, and swear. And the kids were just like, and these were church kids, like, and he would sit with them. He hadn't showered for quite a while. I mean, his clothes were dirty. And they were giving him a ride to the next town. See, so they gave him a ride to the next town, and he said, the youth back goes, hey, what are you going to do? He said, I don't know, I don't have much money, but I got to get them to go back and pick up my bike, which, by the way, is already picked up, and see if they can fix it. So Max says, well, you go do that, we'll go grab lunch, and we'll see what's happening. And the kids are like, no, he's like bad. And so they really did, so it was really funny. The guy comes back, they go pick him up a little bit later, and the guy says, well, they can't fix it, it's the weekend. They told me it'd be ready maybe Monday. What are you going to do? I don't know, I don't have a place to stay. So Max says, well, come with us. And the kid's like, no! So they did. So anyway, ends up, and he's, and again, he's rude. The kids don't like him. They're avoiding him like the plague. And so that night at their first meeting, Mac tells them, here's the theme. It's loving the unlovable. I want you to meet my friend, the motorcycle guy, Pastor Bob. It's going to be our guest speaker. And the kids felt that. So that's called a teachable moment. This is not a teachable moment. This is not like Jesus saying, Zach, I need you to climb this tree. It'll really freak people out. I'll walk over, I'll call you by name. All right? And then I'll go to your house. Everybody go, look at Jesus. He was just such a nice guy to that short guy. Okay? That's not this. Jesus constantly was reaching out, leaning toward, connecting with those who were that most people would look away from, look past, and look over. Secondly, thing I want you to know about this story is it didn't go unnoticed. Jesus was often criticized for hanging around the wrong people. Happened in this text. Especially came these shots from the religious right. Those who were correct and right and pious and devout. Especially the Pharisees. But the bottom line is, Jesus didn't plan this. He just did this every day. Constantly reaching out to those who were on the periphery of society. So we've been doing in this last few weeks. We've been looking at this text. We've been making some observations, drawing some principles, and learning how it was that Jesus and then Paul would imitate Jesus, and then the early church would embrace both Jesus and Paul's teaching. How they were able to make a difference in their community, their culture, and ultimately their world. We've made 5 observations. I'm just going to hit on them so we get kind of a backdrop before we talk about what I want to talk about this morning. But the 5 are simply this. Number 1, they leaned relationally in the direction of those they wanted to reach. They constantly did this, and this included those who were downtrodden, hated, left out, looked over, pushed away, those who were always on the outside looking in, the people that were the misfits, not good enough, so the rejects of society. And there was nobody that came across Jesus' path that he overlooked or that he ignored. And this included, by the way, the irreligious, non-religious, and sacrilegious, which really ticked off the very religious. Okay? So I want you to understand that. Number 2, We saw that they were not concerned about the issue of being guilty by association. Jesus didn't worry about who he was with and their reputation. He didn't worry about how that might affect his reputation. He wasn't concerned about public approval ratings. He wasn't concerned about people frowning on his company. He just didn't simply care. Why? Because people mattered to him. Not their label, not what they've been bagged and tagged, not their sin. He just cared about people and those that were brought across his path. Third, I like this one. They were constantly at odds with the religious right. And here's the bottom line. Jesus and Paul in the early church were constantly at odds with those that they agreed with theologically. This was an issue of theology. Okay? This wasn't separating because of theology, which, by the way, is a very poor reason sometimes for us to separate. But what we said at this point was simply this. Any theology that does not lead to and result in loving God more and loving people more is not theology. It's just religious chatter. It's babble. It's the blah, blah, blah. It is the Charlie Brown's teacher, blah, 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 blah. It means absolutely nothing. Okay? Because theology, right theology, always draws us closer to God and draws us closer to those who are part of his family. And those who are not. Fourthly, they refused to be dragged into debates and matters that distracted them from their primary objective. Bottom line is, we said, we don't get distracted. People matter to us, nothing else does. And then finally, Jesus and Paul did not judge non-believers for behaving like non-believers. We said the church loses its influence to the degree that they try to police the behavior of those who are not part of the church. Okay? We take care of each other. We kind of call each other into account. We hold each other accountable. It's not shaming. It's not meant to make a person feel bad. It's about helping them reach their potential. All right? So here's the question I want to address. With those five in the background, here's the question I want for us to ask ourselves, for you to ask yourself. How is it that we create change, influence people, share our faith, and change our world? How are we supposed to do that? What is supposed to be our approach? And last week we introduced a text, and that's one of the two texts we're going to look at, two verses we're going to look at this morning. And here's the first. We're going to look at what Jesus said. We're going to look at what Paul said. Okay? Jesus said this way. He said, you are the light of the world. Here's the implication of that verse. You are the light of the world. The world is a dark place. And God has uniquely, okay, done something to change that by putting a light into that world. The world is a dark place, and God has provided the world with a flashlight. And the bottom line is, you are that flashlight. You are that beacon. You are supposed to provide light. Now, he goes on to say, a town built on a hill cannot be hidden. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Don't know if you've ever driven from like here to California, and we're driving through the Nevada desert. Ivana a few years ago did that. We were driving at night, and it was a very, very dark night. But we could see the lights of Vegas miles away from Vegas. I mean, the lights are so bright there anyway that you can see it a long way away. And that's what Jesus is saying. A city on a hill can't be hidden. It's going to illuminate at night. When it's dark, the darker the night, the more that it illuminates. He goes on to say, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, okay? And that once on the stand, it gives light to the entire house. Now, if people were listening to Jesus, let's just say it, Jesus talked up to this point, he's talking about a light, he's talking about a city on a hill, he's talking about putting it on the stand so it gives light to the whole time. And people are right, okay, oh Jesus, okay, I got it. Light gives light, especially when it's dark. What is your point? Okay? And then Jesus, knowing what they thought, says, in the same way, let your light shine before the others, that they may see, big phrase here, your good deeds, and glorify your Father in heaven. It says they may see your good deeds. That is how you live and how your faith plays itself out and how you relate to the world that you're in. It's the things that you do that demonstrate that God is in you. And that directly is talking about your relationship with others. Now, it does not say that they may see your billboards. Now, I say billboards because I traveled kind of extensively the last couple months driving. I've seen all kinds of really creative religious billboards. I've seen ones that are fun. I mean, they're funny to me. They have a great line. I've seen ones that are pretty direct. I think I told you one there's near Sioux City. I can't remember if it's north or south. So they have a big sign that says, "Prepare to meet your maker," which I'm sure everybody just pulls over right there and just prays. Oh God, save me now. There's some that have been a little bit offensive. But it doesn't say billboards. Why? Because billboards are nice, but they only make a statement. I don't think they usually make a difference. Usually somebody reads that billboard, they feel good about themselves, and somebody else is irritated that it's there. Okay, that's making a statement. Because we said in this series, Jesus wants you not to make a statement, but to make a difference. And making a statement's easy. Making a statement means you can point, draw a line in the sand, you can tell, I'm better than you, I'm in, you're out, you don't belong, too bad. And it's easy to make statements. But Jesus wants us to make a difference. So it doesn't say billboards. It doesn't say bumper stickers. Okay? It doesn't say the cross necklace that you wear. It doesn't say the Christian t-shirt. It doesn't say gospel tracts. It doesn't say those things. Now, and I'm not just trashing on those things, because I've got t-shirts, I have a cross necklace I never wear, but I got one, and I've seen some really funny bumper stickers. I used to actually have like 3 on my car, and they all made statements, okay? But I'm not sure they made a difference. What am I saying? It's easy to make a statement, because you can do that with no relational context at all. But if you're going to make a difference, that means rolling up your sleeves and getting involved in somebody else's life and investing. It means actually you become vulnerable. You put yourself in a position to be abused and used. You do that anytime you're in a relationship, to be mistreated, to be written off, to be rejected. But it also means giving yourself and investing in time and energy. But making a statement doesn't involve that at all. All those things that we just mentioned, the billboards, the bumper stickers, all that kind of stuff, they're nice. They make a statement. But the question we got to ask ourselves is, do they make a difference? So if you want to be a light that attracts people, kind of like light attracts a bug, all right, or bugs, then you got to live in such a way that people go, whoa, wow, that's different. That's unique. You're going to help me? Why? You're being kind to me? Why? Why do you treat me with respect? Why do you value me? Why do you respond to me like I matter? Why did you do this? Why did you say this positive thing? It's got to be that kind of thing. And I'm not doing it. It's not something that okay, today I have to tell some lady she looks nice in her dress. So it's just something that, you look nice in her dress. And it can't be scripted, okay? It can't be just something that comes off kind of corny and unconnected with relationship. It's catching people off guard. It's living in such a way that sooner or later they begin to see your good deeds, and then they start to connect the dots. Okay, there's something different about this person here. There's this friend I had that used to lift weights with these guys, and he was a Christ follower, and these 3 guys he lifted with weren't. In fact, they were about as secular and earthy as they get. And he had gotten a friendship with him because he lived next door, and they had this garage, and they had weights, and then he didn't have weights, and so he asked if he could lift with him, and that's how they got to know each other. Over the months, they started having interaction. And one day, he was over there lifting, and one of these guys just simply said, okay, I don't get it. And he goes, why? He said, well, you've done this, and you've been nice, and you're positive, and you love life, and I just don't get it. And what happened was this young man connected the dots. And he said, there's something different about your life. I want to know what it is. There was relationship. Now I want you to know that was one of the 3 men. Another one, the other 2 guys never asked the question. Do you see what I'm saying? It's one of those things where you live in such a way that people want to know, what do you have that I don't? And you see this all the time. People are looking, the world's a dark place. There's a lot of dark things that happen. There's a lot of pain that comes our way. People have to deal with it every day. And when they see, for example, something bad happens to you and you respond to it rightly, and you respond to it with dignity and with love, and it's even especially if it's a situation where you are hurt and mistreated and you're the victim, and you respond in a way that's so not normal, people take notice of that. Especially when they're thinking, you know what I would do if it had been me? I would have done this, this, this. And come on, you've been there, and maybe something that's happened to you, and you say, you know, part of me wants to respond that way, but I also realize there's no such thing as getting even. This will just go back and forth, it'll never end. I also know that when I don't forgive, it stresses me out, it makes me angry, it distracts me, so I need to release this. I mean, you share that kind of stuff, people are like, that's not normal. That's not how do you do that? That's connecting the dots. And so I'm talking about living in such a way where your generosity, your kindness, your thoughtfulness, your honesty, the way that you treat your family, the way that you respond to authority, the way that you interact at work, the way that you interplay in your neighborhood, all that kind of stuff, the way you serve your community, they see your good deeds and they come to this conclusion, you know, I don't know if, because I've heard that they're one of those religious people, they're a Christian, they're very serious about God. I don't know if I want to be like that, but I hope someday that my son finds a cute one of those, because they're good people. That would be a good person to have in our family. You know, I don't know if I want to be a Christian, but I sure want to hire one. You know why? Because they have integrity. I have employees that steal from me and don't tell me the truth, but this person, they're honest, they tell the truth, and they're straightforward. I can trust them with my back. That's the kind of people I want to hire them, because they get along with others and they're looking out for my back. That's what I'm talking about, living in such a way. And that's making a difference, not simply making a point. You live in such a way, a light in the dark world, that the world is attracted to your life. Now I want you to know Jesus is sharing this, and that's basically what he's saying in this text. And every time you speak, and every time in your life, there's always cynics and critics. And so some of these religious people are thinking, well, that's all very nice, Jesus, but what about the law? What about right and wrong? What about setting people straight? What do we do with the law and the prophets? What do you do with that? Huh? What about drawing a line in the sand about truth? And that's what they're thinking. And then Jesus says, do not think that I have come to abolish the law or prophets. And they're like, oh, we're just thinking that. And he knows that. And he's answering that question. He says this, I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. And the bottom line is this. You know, they're thinking, you're saying that I just should live my life and love my neighbor, but what about right and wrong? And Jesus said, this isn't about right and wrong. This is not one or the other. This is both and. You don't have to take the morality gun out and blow people away and tell them whether they're not right. You don't have to lob these morality hand grenades into a crowd and make a statement. You just got to get life right. And if you do that, you're going to be attractional. You're going to be a light in the dark room. Now, Paul adds to that this kind of thinking. I really like it. I want to add this piece, and then we're done. Paul said it this way. Be wise in the way that you act toward outsiders. Now, again, we're all about this is not about drawing a line in the sand and saying, yeah, they're outsiders. It's not one of those kind of terms. Here he's saying, we're talking as family. This is an inside discussion. So when we're not together, I mean, you should be wise here. But when you're out in the world, you should be wise in the way that you act toward outsiders. This is not an issue of who's in and who's not. This is about making the most of the opportunities that life brings. And that's what he goes on to say. Make the most of every opportunity. And what Paul is saying is, every interaction is key. Every time you're out with people who have no interest in God, and have no interest in religion, and maybe for good reason, because they've been judged, they've been criticized, they've been shunned, they've been in conversations where they felt like they were there was condescending, they've been attacked, and they've had fingers pointed at them. It's been that stuff that we've been talking about, the ugly part sometimes of religion and of the church. But he says, make the most of every opportunity you have. When you are face to face, knee to knee, side by side, with people who are not in the faith, you need to be strategically thinking. Because it's not about you. It's about God. It's about faith. It's about the things that matter. Paul goes on and says this, let your conversation always be full of grace. How much grace? Full. Do you know what that word means in the Greek? It means full. Profound, isn't it? It's full, okay? It's full. It's like, I don't know if you've ever, it means this. It means so much grace that there's hardly any room for anything else. You ever filled up a bucket or something, and you filled it too full, and it's right there on the rim, and then you're trying to take it somewhere, but you're trying not to dump it, or maybe you're at the house and you filled something up, and now you've got no room. You got to be very careful. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. Or you fill up your cup or your mug with a drink and your coffee or something, and now you're like, crud. So you leave that table, and you get down there, and you suck a little bit out of it to give yourself some room. Why? Because it's so full. And that's what it means. Let your conversations always be full to the brim with grace. Person, well, what about truth? What about making sure they understand the law? And what's right and what's wrong? But Paul continues. He said, let your grace, or your conversation be full of grace, but seasoned with salt. Now, just so you know, I'm a saltaholic. I love salt. If we go out for dinner, if my kids are with me and they're thinking, they always hide the salt. Because I was always like, I like a little French fries with my salt. I like, a little whatever I'm eating with, salt with a little bit of whatever I'm eating. Saltaholic until about 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember when it was. Some of you knew where I had to go to the hospital because I had kidney stones. And the doctor says, hey, you like salt? I said, sure do. He says, you know what salt is? No, it's sodium. Cool. He says, do you know what kidney stones are? No, calcium. Did you know sodium attracts calcium? And if you cut back on your salt, you'll have less kidney stones. And if you've ever had a kidney stone, you want to die. Okay, I'm serious, you want to die. The first time I had one, I went in the hospital, and they said, they wheeled me in. I mean, that was a pain. The doctor said, what do you want me to do? Shoot me! I just said, shoot me! Shoot me with something! Novocaine! Put me out! I was dying, okay? Because it drops you. My dad is 6'6", and his weight 325, big man, and I remember one time, he had kidney stones, and we'd be walking, boom! I mean, he was down. I was like jumping on and trying to do CPR. Help me! It's a kidney stone! You're gonna kill me! So it'll drop you. And when I was in my hospital, the first time I had one of those suckers, I tell you what, the nurse told me, she goes, I've had 3 babies and 2 kidney stones, and I choose labor. So if your wife, woman, you've never had one, she goes, choose labor, it's easier. Okay? So you don't want these things. Now let me tell you a story. Because the doctor I went to, Dr. Hensley, he just said, you want to see me again? I don't mind seeing you, because every time you walk in my door, it's ching-ching. But you don't cut back on the salt, you'll be seeing me. And so I had to cut back, and it was death. It was like, I couldn't believe it. But actually I found out food tastes pretty good. Okay, everything doesn't have to taste like salt. And so I put salt in everything. That's not what Paul's saying. He's not saying, hey, go down the salt. It says season. That's like a pinch. It's like full of grace. Little bit of salt. Okay, that's what it is. It is full to the brim and a pinch of salt. What's the point? And when I say pinch, I'm not talking about a pinch between the gum and the lip. I'm not talking that's way too much. Just a tinge amount of salt. Full of grace in your conversation to the point that that's almost all it looks like it's over the top, too much grace. In our interaction with people who aren't Christ followers, we need to be all about grace and a whole lot less, how about maybe I say hardly any, if at all, any salt. That's what Paul's saying. You want to be wise in interacting with people who aren't Christ followers, then you need to have a ton of grace. Now I got to tell you something, I don't even have to go into this. If you have any church history at all with the evangelical conservative part of the thing called the church, you know we've gotten this thing backwards, especially the last 5 decades. We draw lines dudes, we got people theologically in this town who, because I'm not wearing a tie, all right, and then we're meeting, we have a bar, they write us off. And theologically, we are exact, okay, but they hate our approach, so they write us off on the approach. Goofy stuff. Now, if they're that way with us and we're in the family, what do you think they're about people who aren't in the family? It's brutal. They're just like, yeah, there you go, you deserved it. I mean, that's how I got people who are like that. And it's sad. And our conversations can be full of salt. Full of salt? No, it's not. That's really full of salt. And yeah, I've just been around a lot of people that are all about, you're bad, you're wrong, you're evil, you're out of line, you deserve what you get, you made your bed, now sleep in it, you're getting your just desserts. A long time ago there was an issue that came out, and just so you know, it was on the issue of, I can't remember what the issue was. Maybe it'll come to me in a minute. But the bottom line, there was a lot of people that were writing, a lot of evangelicals are writing against this particular thing. I really can't remember what it was. And they were coming out and saying, you're going to go to hell because of this. That God's going to nail you for your sin. And what was really funny is a guy named Chuck Colson, who recently passed away, you might know Chuck from Watergate. God changed his life in a prison cell. He wrote a book called Who Speaks for God? And on that issue, he simply said this. He said, you know what? If God has decided now he's going to whack everybody who sins, he said we'll all be done whacked. Because none of us got anything on anyone. And if God's going to reach out and start whacking people because of sin, there is no hope. The issue is we deserve to be whacked and we get grace. Regardless. Okay? So the bottom line is, it's not that. And we're so quick to always tell people, you got to clean up your act. You got to take a shower. You got to bathe before God's going to accept you. But that's not really the issue. The real issue behind that is, you got to be a whole lot like me before I accept you. That's really the bottom line. All right? When we talk about that, we all got stuff. The church too often has said, if you're not like us, you don't belong to us, we'll preach against you. But when you become like us, you can join us and you can help us preach against other people. It's a great sell. And there's been too much of that. Now, how do you make a difference? How does this approach work? I've got two stories for you. And one is from a great book called Messy Spirituality. It's written by a guy named Michael Yaconelli. I'm going to quote him directly in this book. He doesn't mind. You know why? Because he's dead. Just so you know, we actually, a lot of our vision, we've taken from Mike. And we have something, if you ever go to our internet, it says, what do we believe? You're going to see that we believe in grace, we believe in Jesus, we believe in the Bible. And it's written really cool. And we got that from Mike Yaconelli. And when we started our church in 2006, we printed that verbatim, and in very, 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 very small print, you read his name, that we got it from him. But we stole it, so I wrote him an email, and to get permission to use his stuff, and he was killed 2 days after I sent the email. So now when people say, did you steal that from Mike Yaconelli? I say, no, he stole it from us, but you know, he's gone now, and it's okay. So, and there's some people like, he was so flippant. But Mike's got some great stuff. Terrific, terrific book. A lot of what we've been talking about, by the way, is just echoed in this book in a variety of ways. Our small groups going through it, we love it. To make a difference means rolling up your sleeves and investing in people. And it's easier than you think. And it's not something where you have to be out there, personable, gifted, talented, rich. It doesn't. Those are not. That's not it. It's about having a heart for people. This is just one story out of this book. Her name is Gertie, the old lady who infiltrated the youth group. I got her. At age 76, Gertie became concerned about the young people in her church, so she volunteered to help with the high school youth group. What are you on, crack? 76. What would you like to do? The pastor said. She goes, I don't know. God and I will think of something. Like that. So she has no game plan. Gertie wasn't a speaker. She felt too old to play games. She didn't want to lead Bible studies or counsel at camp. But she had a camera. So she took pictures of every kid in the youth group, put them on flashcards, wrote biographical information on the back of each. She memorized the picture and the information on the flashcard. And she stood at the door to the youth room every Sunday night, and as students entered, she welcomed each one of them by name. At the end of the meeting, Gertie stood at the door again, saying goodbye to each person by name and promising to pray for them. Over the years, the church's young people discovered that Gertie had the Bible almost memorized. So they came to her with questions and struggles that they were having in their lives. 10 years later, at 86, Gertie suffered 3 strokes. The prospect of her death distressed all the kids in the youth group. And they wanted to help her, to tell her how much she meant to them, but they didn't know how. One afternoon, after he'd finished reading Tuesdays with Morrie, which is a great book, the youth leader had an idea. Gertie, he said, I want to do your funeral. She goes, I know. I want you to do my funeral, but I'm not dead yet. Love that. Yeah, I know, but I want to do your funeral while you're alive, so that you can hear how much you mean to the kids of our church and to our church. Gertie liked the idea, and a little embarrassed, she goes, okay. So the youth group and its leaders planned her living funeral. As you might imagine, young men and young women packed out the service. Many had graduated from college, married, had children of their own. 10 years worth of students got up to share Gertie's stories that night. At the end of the evening, a group of high school young people gathered mysteriously at the back of the room. To understand what they were doing, you need to know something about Gertie. She may have been 86, but she never lost her youth. No old people's perfume for Gertie. She loved expensive designer perfumes like Estee Lauder's Beautiful, which, by the way, smells amazing on my wife. That was her favorite. The young people walked down the aisle at the end of the service. They all clumped together in order to hide something, and when they arrived up front, they held up a giant, expensive bottle of Beautiful, which they broke and poured over Gertie's feet, anointing her feet in gratitude for all the years that she had served them. And like the widow with her tiny offering, Gertie's offering will live long after she's gone. 86, working with teenagers. Now, who would think that? The other part of the story is she would tell them that she would pray for them, and she would get their names and she would write them down on the card and then her prayer requests, and then she would pray for them. One of the guys who impacted my life, I met at a conference. I liked him, liked what he had said. I still have the notes from that message that he gave over 30 years ago when I was just a kid. So I wrote him a note and told him the difference he made and told him some of the things I was thinking about my life. A year later, I got this large card, and it had all these dates written on it because he had prayed for me every day, and every time he prayed for me, he'd write down my name and the prayer requests that I had sent him. Had a huge impact on my life. And now he's gone. I had a Gertie, her name was Wanda Chittenden. Taught our junior high and then senior high Sunday school classes. She was well into her 70s. It's not about age. It's not about being cool. Okay? And then one more story and I'm done. This is a sappy one. It's one of my favorites. If you've heard it before, pretend like you haven't. Sometimes the approach is simply being compassionate and not overlooking those who are easy to overlook and to be frustrated with. And some of you have heard this before. Teddy Stollard certainly qualified as one of the least. Disinterested in school, musty, wrinkled clothes, hair never combed. One of those kids in the school with a deadpan face, expressionless, sort of a glassy, unfocused stare. Miss Thompson was his teacher when he was in elementary school, and when she spoke to Ted, he always answered in monosyllables. He was unattractive, unmotivated, and distant. He was just plain hard to like. Even though his teacher said she loved all the students in her class the same, deep down inside she knew that wasn't being honest. Whenever she marked Teddy's papers, she got a certain pleasure, perverse pleasure, of putting X's next to wrong answers, and when she put the F's at the top of the papers, she always did it with a flair. She should have known better. She had Teddy's records, and she knew more about him than she wanted to admit. The records read, first grade, Teddy shows promise with his work and attitude, but poor home situation. Second grade, Teddy could do better. Mother is seriously ill. He receives little help or encouragement at home. Third grade, Teddy is a good boy, but too serious. He's a slow learner. His mother died this year. Fourth grade, Teddy is very slow. He's well behaved and quiet. His father shows no interest. You know how easy it is to look over a kid like that? Classmates came and it was, oh, I'm sorry, I missed some picture page here, but anyway, it was Christmas. Christmas came, and the boys and girls in Miss Thompson's class brought her Christmas presents. You ever did that when you had an elementary teacher? They piled the presents on her desk and crowded around at the end of the day to watch her open them. Among the presents, there was one from Teddy Stollard. She was surprised that he had brought her a gift, but he had. Teddy's gift was wrapped in brown paper and was held together with Scotch tape. And on the paper were written the simple words, "For Miss Thompson from Teddy." When she opened Teddy's present, out fell a gaudy rhinestone bracelet with half the stones missing and a bottle of cheap perfume half gone. The other boys and girls giggled and smirked over Teddy's gift, but Miss Thompson at least had enough sense to silence them by immediately putting on the bracelet and putting on some of the perfume. Holding her wrist up for the other children, she said, "Doesn't it smell lovely?" And the other kids taking the cue from their teacher said, "Ooh, yeah, it smells really pretty." When school was dismissed, the other children had left, but Teddy lingered behind. He slowly came over to her desk and he said, Miss Thompson, you smell just like my mother. And her bracelet looks really pretty on you too. I'm glad you like the presents." When Teddy left, Miss Thompson got down on her knees and she cried and asked God to forgive her. You know how easy that is to do? How many times we do that in 100 different ways every week, looking past people who just need a few words of affirmation. The next day when the children came to school, they were welcomed by a new teacher. Miss Thompson had become a different person. She was no longer just a teacher, she had become an agent of God. She was now a person committed to loving her kids and doing things for them that would live long after her. She helped all the children, but especially now the slow ones, and especially Teddy Stollard. By the end of that school year, Teddy showed dramatic improvement. He had caught up with most of the students and was even ahead of some of them. And she didn't hear from Teddy for a long, long time. In fact, she had forgotten about him. And then one day she got a note. "Dear Miss Thompson, I want you to be the first to know I'll be graduating second in my class. Love, Teddy Stollard." 4 years later, another note came. "Dear Mrs. Thompson, they just told me I'll be graduating first in my class. I wanted you to know, be the first to know the university has not been easy, but I really liked it. Love, Teddy Stollard." And 4 years later, "Dear Miss Thompson, as of today, I'm Theodore Stollard, MD. How about that? I wanted you to be the first to know. I'm getting married next month, the 27th to be exact, and I want you to come and sit where my mom would have sat if she'd been alive. You're the only family I have now. Dad died last year. Love, Teddy Stollard." Miss Thompson went to that wedding and sat where Teddy's mother would have sat. She deserved to sit there. She had done something for Teddy that he would never forget. Goes on to write, this author, "What can you give as a gift? Instead of giving only something you can buy, risk giving something that will live long after you. Be really generous. Give of yourself. Give yourself to the Teddy Stollards, the least of these, whom you can help to become one of the greats of these." The bottom line is the approach is we invest in people because people matter. We invest because God invested in us. We initiate relationships with people because we love people. Why? Because God initiated and loved us first. And the closer we get to understanding that and appreciating grace, the more gracious we will become. The more full of grace we will be in our approach. Is it easy? No. Is it work? Yes. Do people always respond favorably? No. But the bottom line is you don't do it for the response, you do it because it's right. And you do it because it reflects the God who first gave to us. And it makes a difference. There was a man one time walking along the shore. And the tide had come up and it had gone down, and along that shore there was all these starfish that got stranded on the sand. And if they don't get water, they're going to die. And this man was walking along, picking up these starfish and chucking them. And there was hundreds, maybe thousands of these starfish. And he was walking down the beach, taking the time to throw as many as he could back into the sea. Well, somebody saw him do that and walked up and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Saving starfish." He said, "There's hundreds here. You're going to think you're going to make a difference? You're never going to get it all done." And he checked one and he goes, "Well, made a difference in that one." And the point is, it makes a difference in that one. So here, this week, try something. Start tomorrow morning off saying, okay, God, help me to see needs. Help me open my eyes to see people and needs and something I can do to make a difference in somebody else's life. In a small way, a significant way, it doesn't matter to me. Just open my eyes and just see what might happen. And if something happens, do me a favor. Let me know. We're not going to single you out. Guess what Kyle did? We're not going to do that. That would be a stretch. It's Kyle. Just kidding. I'm not going to do that. But I just want you to see that you can make a difference. But may I tell you what? That means stopping, it means slowing down. Two things that our culture does not embrace and we're not wired for. Let's pray. The approach. God, the approach is so important. And most of us, if they're like me, we get frustrated. We don't like to wait. We don't like to stand in line. We don't like to be cut off in traffic. We don't like having to wait. I know people who get mad because they had to wait because of an accident. Instead of being concerned about the people in the accident, instead of being thankful for it not being them. And that's the way we are. We're always in a hurry. Always going, going, going. But if we're going to be full of grace and seasoned with salt, if we're going to have the right approach, then we're never in a hurry when it involves people, because people matter. They matter to you, therefore they ought to matter to us. And for us who walk with you, we know what it's like for you to invade our space, to take time, to reach down to initiate a relationship with us, and we're grateful and we're humble. Help us to do the same. For the people who bring across our path, and praise in Christ's name. Amen.
Would you stand up, please?